If you've been to Walmart in the last few months, you've probably noticed something. Prices on certain things just keep creeping up. Not everything, just certain things. And most people don't realize why. I started paying attention to this a few months ago, almost by accident. I was buying the same things I always buy, and the total kept getting higher, even when the sale tags looked the same. So I started digging into it. What I found is that there's a pattern. 12 categories, specifically, that are quietly getting more expensive and probably won't ever come back down. Nobody is really talking about this out loud. Stores don't want to announce it because it makes people upset. But if you know what's coming, you can actually get ahead of it. That's what this is about. Not panic. Just being the person who noticed first. Stick with me, because number 7 on this list genuinely surprised me. I did not expect it, and once you hear it, you'll probably start checking your own receipts differently. Let's get into it. Item number 1. Eggs. Eggs are the obvious one, but the reason behind it is bigger than most people realize. Avian flu outbreaks have hit egg-laying flocks hard over the past couple of years, and every time a flock gets culled, it takes months to rebuild it. That's not a supply chain problem you fix in a week. It's a biological problem, and biology doesn't care about your grocery budget. Industry reports have shown egg prices spiking and dipping in waves, tied directly to outbreak cycles rather than settling back to where they used to be. I remember checking prices at the start of the year and thinking, okay, this is calming down. Then a few weeks later it spiked again. I actually started asking a friend who works in food distribution about it, and he told me flatly that the flocks just aren't recovering fast enough to keep up with demand. That stuck with me. If eggs are a staple in your house, this is the one to plan around. Buy in slightly larger batches when prices dip, and don't assume a low week means it's over. This is one of those things where being caught off guard actually hurts your weekly budget, not just your mood. Item number 2. Chocolate and cocoa products. This one is quiet, but it's real, and it's not going away soon. Cocoa prices have been climbing for a while now because of poor harvests in West Africa, where most of the world's cocoa actually comes from. Less cocoa grown means every chocolate bar gets a little more expensive to make. Reports from commodity markets have flagged cocoa as one of the most volatile ingredients on the shelf right now. More than coffee, more than sugar. I noticed this myself when a bag of chocolate chips I buy for baking jumped in price twice in one season. At first, I thought it was just that one brand. It wasn't. I checked 3 other brands on the same shelf, and they'd all gone up too. If you bake regularly, or you just like having chocolate around, this is a good time to buy a little extra when you see a fair price, rather than waiting for it to come back down. This isn't an empty shelf situation. It's the shelf price quietly resets higher situation, which is honestly sneakier. Item number 3. Coffee. Coffee is one where the price creep has been happening so gradually that people barely notice until they compare receipts months apart. Weather issues in Brazil and Vietnam, the 2 biggest coffee-producing regions, have hurt yields, and on top of that, shipping and tariff costs have added pressure on the import side. Trade data has consistently shown coffee bean costs rising at the wholesale level, which almost always gets passed down to the shelf eventually. I actually switched brands last year thinking I'd save money, and within 2 months, that brand had gone up too. That's when it clicked for me that this wasn't a brand problem, it was a coffee problem. If you're a daily coffee drinker, this is worth stocking a little deeper than usual, especially whole bean or ground coffee that stores well in a sealed container in a cool, dark spot. Your morning routine shouldn't feel like a financial decision, but right now, for a lot of people, it kind of is. Item number 4. Olive oil. Olive oil has quietly become one of the most expensive things per ounce in a lot of kitchens, and most people haven't clocked why. Drought conditions across parts of the Mediterranean have hit olive harvests hard in recent years, and olive oil doesn't have a quick substitute crop the way some other products do. You won't believe what's coming at number 8, by the way. I'm not skipping ahead, just don't want you to miss it. Industry sources have described the recent olive oil supply as one of the tightest in years, with production well below historical averages in some regions. When I checked prices last month, a bottle I used to grab without thinking twice had genuinely doubled compared to a couple years back. I actually paused in the aisle and did the math twice because I assumed I misread it. If you use olive oil regularly, buying a larger bottle when it's on any kind of sale makes more sense now than it used to, since the baseline price just isn't coming back down anytime soon. This is a small thing in a single meal, but it adds up fast over a month, and that's exactly the kind of cost that sneaks past people. Item number 5. Orange juice. Orange juice is one of those breakfast staples that's quietly become a luxury item, and the reason is almost entirely agricultural. Citrus greening disease has devastated orange groves in Florida for years now, and it doesn't really have a cure. Trees get sick, yields drop, and groves take years to replant and recover, if they recover at all. Agricultural reports have repeatedly pointed to Florida's orange output falling to historic lows, which puts direct pressure on juice prices nationwide. I grew up with orange juice just being a normal fridge staple, so seeing the price on a carton now genuinely stops me for a second every time. I asked someone I know in food retail about it, and he said plainly that domestic supply just isn't what it used to be, so more of it is being imported, and that costs more. If your household goes through orange juice regularly, frozen concentrate is often a cheaper way to stretch the same amount of juice, and it stores for a long time in the freezer. This is one of those changes that happened so gradually that a lot of people haven't fully registered it yet. Item number 6. Beef has been climbing for a specific reason that most shoppers don't think about, and it comes down to the size of the national cattle herd. Drought conditions across cattle country over recent years forced a lot of ranchers to reduce their herds because there wasn't enough feed or water to support them. Rebuilding a cattle herd takes years, not months, since cows only have one calf at a time. Agricultural data has shown the national cattle herd at some of its lowest levels in decades, which is a direct driver of beef prices at the register. I talked to someone who works adjacent to the meat supply chain, and he told me plainly that even if conditions improve right now, prices won't reflect that for a couple of years, because the herd rebuild is that slow. If beef is a regular part of your meals, this is a good time to buy in bulk when cuts go on sale and freeze portions, rather than buying week to week at whatever the current price is. This one isn't temporary in the way a lot of price swings are. It's tied to biology and time, and both of those move slowly. Item number 7. Butter and dairy. Butter has quietly become one of the more noticeably expensive staples, and it's tied to broader dairy cost pressures. Feed costs for dairy cattle have risen, and demand for butter fat, especially from the food service and baking industries, has stayed high. That combination pushes the price of butter up faster than a lot of other dairy products. Reports on dairy markets have flagged butter specifically as one of the categories seeing consistent upward pressure, more than milk or cheese in some regions. I noticed this baking around the holidays last year. A pound of butter that used to be an afterthought purchase suddenly felt like something I needed to plan for. I checked 3 different stores out of curiosity, and the pattern was the same everywhere. If you bake often, buying butter when it dips and freezing extra is one of the more reliable ways to soften this one, since butter freezes well for months without much quality loss. This is a good example of a price change that hides in plain sight because it's a small line item that most people don't track closely. Item number 8. Imported cheese. Here's the one I promised earlier, and it genuinely surprised me when I looked into it. A lot of specialty and imported cheeses have gotten noticeably more expensive because of a mix of tariff pressure on imported goods and the same dairy cost increases hitting production overseas. Cheese that travels a long way to get to the shelf picks up cost at every step of that journey right now. Trade reports have specifically pointed to tariffs on certain imported food categories as a factor pushing shelf prices up faster than domestic products in the same aisle. I used to grab a specific imported cheese without thinking about it, and one trip I actually stopped and stared at the price tag because it had jumped so much since the last time I bought it. I asked someone who works in specialty food retail, and she said imported cheese has become one of the categories customers complain about most right now. If you love a specific imported cheese, buying it in a slightly larger block when you see it and portioning it out yourself, then freezing what you won't use soon stretches it further than buying smaller amounts more often. This is exactly the kind of item that quietly becomes a treat instead of a staple, without anyone officially announcing that change. Item number 9. Canned goods. Canned goods are an interesting one because the food inside hasn't necessarily gotten more expensive. The can has. Tariffs on imported aluminum and steel have pushed up the cost of packaging materials, and that cost gets built into the price of anything sold in a metal can, from vegetables to soup to canned fish. Industry analysis has pointed to packaging costs, not just ingredients, as a growing share of what you're actually paying for at the register on canned items. When I first heard this, it didn't make sense to me. Why would a can of beans cost more if the beans themselves are the same? Then someone explained it plainly, that the metal itself has gotten more expensive to produce and import, and that cost has to go somewhere. If you rely on canned goods for pantry staples, buying in bulk packs when they're discounted makes more sense now than grabbing single cans regularly, since the baseline cost per can has shifted. This is one of those hidden ones because it's not the food that changed. It's what's holding the food that changed. Item number 10. Shrimp and seafood. Shrimp has quietly become one of the more unpredictable items in the seafood case, and most people assume it's just normal price fluctuation. It's a bit more specific than that. A mix of import tariffs on seafood from major shrimp-producing countries and rising fuel and feed costs in aquaculture operations has pushed shrimp prices up in an uneven way, with some weeks looking normal and others spiking noticeably. Seafood industry reports have described the shrimp supply chain as one of the more tariff-sensitive food categories on shelves right now. I asked someone who works near the seafood distribution side of things, and he said, the price swings customers see in store don't always match what's happening at the supplier level because retailers try to smooth it out until they can't anymore. If shrimp is something you buy regularly, frozen bags on sale are generally a safer bet than the fresh case, since you can stock up when the price is fair instead of buying whatever the current week happens to charge. This is one where patience genuinely pays off because the price swings both directions, just not evenly. Item number 11. Chicken has long been the reliable, affordable protein, which is exactly why this shift has caught so many people off guard. Feed costs, avian flu impacts on breeding flocks, and rising processing and transport costs have combined to push chicken prices up steadily, even though chicken hasn't seen the same dramatic headlines that eggs and beef have gotten. Agricultural market reports have noted that chicken production costs have risen across nearly every stage, from hatchery to processing plant, which adds up even when no single factor looks dramatic on its own. I didn't notice this one right away, honestly, because chicken prices moved slower and quieter than eggs or beef did. It was only when I compared a receipt from a year ago that I saw how much the per-pound price had actually shifted. If chicken is a weekly staple for your household, buying family packs when they're discounted and portioning them into the freezer yourself is one of the more effective ways to manage this, since it lets you buy at the better price point instead of the current one. This is the quiet one on the list, and quiet price creep is honestly the hardest kind to protect yourself against, because you don't notice it until it's already happened. Item number 12. Store brand substitutions. This last one isn't a single product. It's a habit, and it might be the most useful thing on this entire list. As name brand prices have climbed across almost every category we just covered, store brand and private label alternatives have quietly become the better deal in a lot of cases, sometimes made in the same facilities as the name brand version. Consumer reports and retail analysts have increasingly pointed out that the quality gap between store brands and name brands has narrowed significantly over the past couple of years, even as the price gap has widened. I was skeptical about this for a long time, honestly. I always assumed store brand meant lower quality. Then I started doing side-by-side comparisons on a few pantry staples, and in more than one case, I genuinely couldn't tell the difference, or the store brand was slightly better. Going forward, testing the store brand version of whatever's on this list, one item at a time, is a low-risk way to soften a lot of these price increases without changing your actual habits much. This one isn't about a shortage or a crisis. It's about noticing where the better deal quietly moved to. So here's the pattern running through all 12 of these. It's rarely one dramatic event. It's weather, herd sizes, tariffs, packaging costs, and disease cycles stacking quietly on top of each other until the total at checkout just feels different than it used to. Most people won't notice until it's already fully baked into their weekly budget. You're not most people, not anymore, because now you know what's actually driving it. This isn't about panic buying or clearing shelves. It's about making a few smart adjustments before everyone else catches up to what you already know. Protecting your budget isn't about doing everything at once. It's about picking one or two of these and starting there this week. If this helped you see your own shopping trip a little differently, subscribe, because there's more of this kind of insider breakdown coming, and you'll want to see it before everyone else does. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.